Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. Today, I'd like to talk with you about the state of being emotionally unsettled. What does it mean to feel not yourself? Most often, it's connected to our emotions. Emotions are, in general, a space that is difficult for both my clients and the participants of the stalker group to enter. As soon as we start talking about emotions, strange things begin to happen. People stop thinking clearly, their eyes glaze over. This topic seems somehow too complicated because emotions are a space that exposes us to ourselves. That is, when we acknowledge our emotions, we immediately recognize our real self. I've talked about what it means to acknowledge emotions in many of my videos, but I'll repeat it. It's when you don't project the cause outward, but instead you claim it as your own. For example, not they make me angry, but I am angry on my own. I am getting angry. Not they are offending me, but I am not being given what I want. Not I control the space, but I control my emotions, which are about to burst out of me. This space of emotions could reveal all of our secrets to us. We would understand ourselves perfectly and learn to understand other people. We would learn to navigate, to anticipate certain critical states and stop ourselves in advance, but we don't. And today, I'd just like to talk a little bit about this kind of emotional breakdown, the personality's loss of itself. Our first stop is, not with yourself, who is here? Not with yourself. Let's briefly recall a time, perhaps not too long ago, when we had a dialogue with someone in our head, or rather a monologue, where we are constantly trying to prove something to another person, or we start making excuses to that other person in our head, or, as is most often the case, we attack that person. We remember the bad things that, in our opinion, they did, and we tell them about it over and over again. We keep talking, and this person in our head just stands there silently, not answering us at all. So, it seems to us that we're having dialogues in our head, but in reality, it's a monologue. This image of a so-called enemy, when it's not just me inside my own personality, but some external character appears there. And so this question arises, who is here? Who is here? Who is inside my personality? That is, the personality has lost its integrity. It's as if it's already connected to another by some invisible threads, some ties. And the integrity of its shell, the integrity of its personal boundaries has already been breached. A little extension has appeared. This image of the enemy we attack is always about something we cannot acknowledge within ourselves. For example, if I'm just an angry person by nature, and it's not that people are irritating me, then I find myself in front of the mirror, alone with myself. I observe myself as this angry person. If I devalue others, it seems to me that there's just so much imperfection in this world that needs to be noticed and examined. But when I take back that external part, that extension, that someone else, I come to the understanding that I myself am the one who devalues. Or I try to dominate others, to make them cater to me. And when another person doesn't fawn over me, they seem arrogant. It's as if they're acting superior, but what it really means is that I'm not superior to them. So I turn out to be this arrogant person demanding that the world revolve around me. I find that I'm an angry person because so many things irritate me. And it's especially interesting to observe the times when I feel like I'm being patient, that I'm tolerating so much. But patience is always about suppressed aggression that I haven't let out. If I weren't so patient, I'd tell you all exactly what's what. So you see, these are the games we play with ourselves. When you can't admit you're angry, you think you're being patient. You think there are many irritating wrong objects and people. When you can't own your own arrogance, and everyone who refuses to be your servant seems arrogant to you, it's by recognizing this that you regain that integrity. That is, the boundaries of the personality close up. I look at myself in the mirror without the ability to point a finger at someone else, at you, at them, at it. And when this protective shell finally closes around me, and I am left completely alone with only myself, with the person I truly am deep inside, then, most often, I find it almost unbearable to endure. I still desperately want to drag someone else in with me. Well, at least give me my parents, let them be the guilty ones. Or at least the country's economy or some other reason, because I can't be alone with myself. I absolutely have to explain what I don't like about myself with external reasons. And a person simply can't remain in this challenging state for very long if they don't have true acceptance in their life. That is to say, they're unable to really contemplate or reflect on themselves as they truly and honestly are, without any illusions or self-deception. We'll come back to this a bit later, but for today, I'd also like to introduce a second point. To be not yourself. Our first point was about not being with yourself, and this one is about not being yourself. And you see, the question here is, what was that? This is a moment. I hope you're taking notes, or at least making notes on your phone. That's why I write on these papers, so you can have notes. So, not yourself. What was that? It's that state when you join a group where there are, for example, some inside jokes, and the whole group is laughing, so you start laughing along with everyone, even though you don't find it funny. It's a kind of merging with the group, a state where I become one with something that, in truth, is not close to me at all. For example, a person might buy a course on how to solve all their problems in 3 days, how to get out of depression in 3 days, or how to become enlightened in 3 days. And because I spent my own money on this, to be honest, I'll say it helped me a lot. I'll even write wonderful reviews saying everything has been resolved for me, and I'll recommend it, because I can't truly admit to myself deep down that I've actually deceived myself, that I can't, for whatever reason, expose or reveal this self-deception to myself. It's just like in a group of people where I start to giggle along, play along, and act in a way that will make them like me. If I'm aware of my actions, if I understand that I need to fit into society and I'm not trying too hard, then it's all okay. But if I start to truly believe my own lie, then I'm no longer really myself. I'm already becoming someone else. I'm not the person I genuinely am. This state of not being yourself is also a breach of that shell, because it's as if I'm stepping out of myself and becoming a character that I'm not in reality. So I start playing some kind of strange role. This state is like having sex while drunk. You just go for it, not really understanding who the partner is, if you even need it, and you weren't ready for it. But you're just like, hey. And then you get this feeling as if you've eaten something bad, a kind of self-disgust. After such a betrayal of yourself, we feel this disgust. It's like going to a cult where everyone, I don't know, falls to their knees and shouts, waving their hands like this. And you look at everyone, they're all doing it. So you think, well, I'll do it too. You also get on your knees, wave your hands, and then you get that feeling that you weren't yourself, that you betrayed yourself, that you abandoned yourself. And let me remind you, to fit into society, we all play certain roles. But when we understand that we just need to adapt a little, that's one thing. But when we pretend to be someone we're not at all, then we break the integrity of our shell, and we are no longer who we really are. The general state of not being yourself is when a person doesn't identify with their real self. They see themselves as some kind of good, wonderful person. But this negative part, which looking at it, they see as negative, for example, their anger and so on, they constantly have to explain it away with some complex, cumbersome mental constructs, like they pushed me to it, or it's just temporary, I'm a good person, or the circumstances were such that I had to act that way. In other words, the person is in a state of a general alienation from their real self. They constantly associate themselves with some made-up image, with a character that doesn't actually exist. And many people, when they come to psychotherapy or start watching videos on psychoanalysis, they seem to fall through and become that self, but then they jump right back out as if scalded. And that's the third point. Out of yourself, stuffed figure mode. But not a stuffed figure in the sense of you're a dummy, right? But a stuffed figure like when they make taxidermy birds or animals, these arranged stuffed figures that, did you get that down? Stuffed figure mode, out of yourself. These are arranged birds, some animal heads, or whole animals, or even wax figures, which all have the exact same facial expression, behave in the exact same way, and their eyes are like glass beads that just stare. I'm not talking about some people, I'm talking about all people. When we get into a state of stress and can't handle what's happening inside, we enter stuffed figure mode, meaning we reject our living self, our aliveness, and it's as if we turn to stone. This is even reflected. Remember, I promised you when I talked about the first point that we would come back to it. It's when a person becomes dull, as if they're stupefied. This stuffed figure mode is always about this dulling. Even your mouth doesn't move right. Even to speak, you open your mouth and realize you're speaking strangely. And it's all tight like this. So tensions appear when a person is overwhelmed by certain emotions, controls them, clenches themselves so they don't come out, to the point of complete deadness. This stuffed figure mode is something we need in order not to fall apart. It means that some excessive emotions have started to appear inside and we turn to stone in order not to let them in. We break contact with the body. For example, when I feel deadened, but if I were to look in the mirror, I'd see that I've flushed, that my eyes are darting around, that my jaw is somehow clenched, that my body is somehow hunched over like this, meaning I don't feel any of this, but it's happening. This rejection of the self happens at the moment when emotions appear inside that are difficult for me to bear. For example, you're watching a video by Olga Demchuk and she says something that hits a nerve. You start to understand something about yourself. And at that moment, stuffed figure mode can kick in when there's complete denial, meaning there's a clear emotional reaction. The body has reacted, the psyche has reacted, but my mind is somehow separate from all of this. And I say, no, that's not it. And I really want to prove to this Olga Demchuk. I even have conversations with her in my head, telling her that's not right. I give her arguments that she's wrong. So, you see, something is knocking from the inside, from the unconscious, but I don't let it in with my conscious mind, because for some reason I'm not ready to let it into myself. This space of the unconscious is like the basement of our personality, where we store everything that we cannot admit about ourselves. But on the other hand, the unconscious space is our potential. So what do we grow from? Like a little flower that grows from the earth, a personality also needs something to grow from. And, in fact, truly, gaining mastery over the unconscious is precisely about mastering a new and unfamiliar space, one with additional energy that was previously inaccessible. For example, if I realize that I'm feeling anger or envy, and I notice that I'm starting to devalue others because of it, then I don't need to distort reality. I can acknowledge it and say calmly that I'm feeling envy. Because before I couldn't say it calmly or with any sense of peace, I would end up punishing myself for it, feeling guilty and upset, and I had to play the role of someone who isn't envious, or at least pretend to be, for my own sake, to avoid that painful internal blow. Meaning I had to act as if I was unaffected, even though inside it was difficult. There's a kind of mechanism that ensures the personality conforms to the stuffed figure. And if the personality doesn't conform, an attack begins immediately. That's why we need someone else, why we need to disidentify with ourselves, to not perceive ourselves. Or, and this is precisely why we can easily betray ourselves, because we have no sense of our own value, no value for our real self. There's only this stuffed figure that we serve. a kind of perfected stuffed figure. And people who come to psychoanalysis, they most often want to perfect this stuffed figure and not go into the unconscious. And this unconscious, which fills up with certain emotions, can even cause fear. For example, a panic attack when a person is completely unprepared for their emotions. They stored them up and stored them up and stored them up until a kind of emotional explosion occurred. So let's review. First, not with myself, who's here? When some kind of image appears in our psyche, it doesn't matter what, either a wonderful teacher, most often, some kind of ideal person, or that one perfect man or woman, or the image of an enemy. This means we're not accepting something within ourselves. That wonderful one is always about us being that wonderful one. And in that moment, we can get a feel for our ideal self. When the image of an enemy appears, we need it as a reason for what we're experiencing, otherwise we'd have to own it ourselves. Second point, out of my mind, what was that? This is when you start behaving in a way that later makes you ask yourself, Olga, what was that? What was happening to you? What was that strange behavior? This means that you were mimicking for some reason and discarded yourself like waste, like something unnecessary in order to, get praise, recognition, and so on. And the next point is the stuffed figure mode. This is when we turn to stone. We turn to stone because we're controlling certain emotions that are bursting out from within. All these modes aren't about being bad. You need to know all these modes so that they don't seize power, because everything we don't acknowledge in ourselves begins to control us like something alien. As if someone has zombified us or programmed us. Because it's something unclaimed, unrecognized, not brought from the unconscious into consciousness. It's alien. But as soon as I call it my own, I become the master and I can control it. So write about these three modes. Perhaps you're prepared not just to take in, but also to give back. And in the comments, you can add your own thoughts to these modes. Something I didn't mention or missed or didn't have time for, so that you too can become more than just a child suckling its mother's milk, so that there is also giving back, for example, to the community that has gathered around my YouTube channel. And we'll talk more about the taking personality and the one that can already give at the webinar on March 29th on the psychoanalysis of business processes. And we also have several different programs, one of them being my favorite, the School of Humanity. It's about how to cross this transformational bridge and remain as human as possible without regressing. I'll say goodbye for now. See you soon.